afternoon to all of you. My name is Luke, and I've been running a publishing business before I came to SMU. It's been about 3 years since, and growing up, I've been very used to the idea of people telling me, no, I cannot do this, and no, I cannot do that. And I think as my mom would attest to, the easiest way to get me to do something is to tell me, no, you can't do that. And I would be the first one to go and put all my effort and energy into doing it. So without further ado, I just want to tell you today, I'm going to talk to you about the future of digital comics. How many of you here actually read comics still? I know, just get a quick show of hands. Yeah, quite a sizable number. And I grew up in an era where Tintin and Asterix were the most famous comics in the library. I would go to the library, not to study, but to go and hog all the comic books. And it's kind of shaped the way I've been pushing my own entertainment. So in my company, we publish fiction. And it seemed like a very natural step to go into comics as an expansion of the franchise we are building. And so when the idea of going into digital comics actually started about a year ago in September, and I started to survey the landscape of digital comics. And I was very surprised because we've had the digital revolution for quite a while. We've seen the transformation from print books to e-books. But when comics were transferred to a digital platform, we realized that the way it was presented was still the same, right? The way you would read a comic on print, today you open up your app and you go to the most popular app that is out there, Comixology, you realize that the same way you consume your comic on a print format is almost the same way you're going to read it on your digital platform, be it a tablet or your mobile phone. And it got me thinking, isn't there so much we can do with technology? And I started to realize that if I wanted to push the boundaries of what digital storytelling is, I would first have to understand what comics are to most people. And today I summarize in 3 key points what the constraints are with comics, and I'm going to go on to explain to you how we are pushing it in the way we are telling stories today. So the first component is sequential storytelling. As you would realize, most comics are actually sequential images or panels lined up in order and sequence. If you're reading a Western comic, right, if you're reading Superman or Batman, you realize it's from left to right, top to bottom. If you're reading a Japanese manga, it's right to left. But the idea is still the same. Comics are still told in sequence and in order, and that's a crucial element that defines most comics. Does this look familiar to any of you? This is ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. And this was actually, believe it or not, one of the earliest forms of storytelling through images. In fact, I would dare to say that this is probably first idea of comics that humanity had. And you realize that the essence of storytelling through images and panels hasn't really changed over thousands of years. And that's quite amazing, isn't it, that it's managed to preserve itself for so long, despite how technology has advanced since then. So just hold that thought. The second constraint, or the second key element of what defines comics is panel boundaries. If you realize, most comics are actually in images, like here, as you can see, it's lined up, sequence, and you have speech bubbles, images, and background images, all juxtaposed together to tell you a story. So this is a core component of what most people would agree is a comic, right? The third thing I realized with print is there was a significant limitation when it came to page size. Not many people know this. As a consumer, when you open your newspaper and you read your comics, you're not really aware of how the storyteller came to telling the story in that 3 or 4 panels. If you're reading Garfield, if I remember, it's about 4 panels. And it's a very limiting process from the creative point of view because the creator has to squeeze a certain idea or image into that fixed number of panels. Can you hear me? Oh, am I being picked up? Oh, okay. Okay, I think this is better. Okay. So the creator has to fix that number of the story that he wants to tell and squeeze it into that number of panels. And this is a real limitation for most storytellers. So I realized if I wanted to change and push this through with a digital comic, I wanted to do it differently. If not, my content is going to get lost in the audience. So I came up with 3 ways to do it: where, when, and how. And I'm going to explain to you. But before that, in 2005, an industry veteran called Scott McCloud first proposed the idea of an infinite canvas. The infinite canvas is basically an idea where storytellers or content creators, when they transferred the medium of storytelling to the digital platform, theoretically were not bound by the rules that were in place with print. For instance, you realize that in this panel, you see a boy reading from a laptop. And you see a girl behind him exclaiming. And in the same space again, you see another guy and a girl again appearing, and again, and again. And you realize all this takes place in one space on your digital platform, right? And this is only possible with digital storytelling, which is not possible with a print. And most of you will go, duh, it's a digital platform. But this idea might seem very straightforward for many of you, but it was only in 2005 that somebody had to come out and say, hey, look, we don't have to tell stories the same way we've been telling for decades. And this spawned off a few ideas. So today what I'm going to propose to you actually is taking Scott McCloud's idea for an infinite canvas concept one step further in pushing the boundary of what we define as comic storytelling. So the first thing, when? We realized that when we can control when comic panels appear on the screen, I could actually create a sense of suspense. Very simply, you see this girl holding a book, right? In a traditional comic, you would see all the images lined out right in front of you at one go. But with a digital comic, I can play out the scene as the reader reads. And this creates a sense of suspense and excitement that is impossible with print. It's almost like watching a movie, but with the reader in full control of the story. And that's an amazing thing, because most people today, they produce motion comics, which is not something that the reader can control. You're watching a movie, but it doesn't really do much more than that. So we've changed the way comics are told just by playing with the panels. And this is a very simple way we've tweaked the element. The second thing we've done is, since I can control when panels appear, I can also control where panels appear. If you're reading a comic, right, from left to right, top to bottom, there is a sequence and order. But if I presented comics panel by panel, and I bring you on the journey, I don't have to follow the same rules that I use when I'm telling a story in print. For instance, I can throw a panel on the top left corner of your canvas or your screen. I can throw another panel on the bottom right. I can throw a panel in the center, and it will still make sense to you because the reader is still following through. Give you an example. So with this, you see a girl again in the top right corner with a panel there. Then you realize, as you read on, you realize that she's actually part of a bigger event that is happening. Here she's fighting a monster, and the monster is speaking. So you realize, as a reader, as a consumer, the experience changes. It changes dramatically because the reader is being brought on a journey that would be impossible with print. Lastly, how? I realized that to most people, panel boundaries, which I talked about earlier, panels, comics, the driving force was that the panel, the square box, it could be a triangle, it could be a circle, is always been thought of as a medium for delivery, right? It's used as a medium for delivery to deliver the image or the speech bubble or the event. But not many people question whether we could use that form of delivery and tweak it so that we could change the way comics are experienced. Let me give you an example. So with this video, you realize that we're changing the way, we're embedding animation in the way we tell our stories. And the way it's sequenced is such that we can do so many things with the panels, right? We can blow panels away, we can break panels, we can push things, we can split panels, we can change the way a story is told, we can slide panels here and there. And it's really almost, what we can do is only limited by the imagination. And you realize, hey, isn't this so much more like an animation? Well, I would agree with you, but then again, this medium is still being explored by a lot of storytellers today. And we are all fumbling in the dark, trying to figure out, hey, what would work and what would not work. And I think this is very exciting for us because we are in an age where, because of the tablet, we're all trying to figure out what can technology do and how can technology enhance the way we consume our content, the way we tell stories. And you realize in this graph that I've drawn, the difference between a print comic and an animation is really on two different spectrums. And what we're doing today with storytelling and in the digital scene is we're trying to figure out, fumble away in the darkness and try to figure out where exactly does the dynamic comic come in? How exactly do we balance animation and static panels when we're telling stories to increase and enhance the way people consume their comics? And this is very exciting for us because no company today has exactly come and identified in a way that they can present comics in a very solid way, digital comics. And I think it's pretty exciting because the market for digital comics is growing exponentially, and the market for print comics is going down. And for content creators and storytellers that are in this business, they would do wise to pay attention to trends like this. ultimately, the driving force between what I'm doing as a storyteller and what many other content creators are doing in this world, in this industry, should be guided by story. And the driving force between why I was doing this is that I wanted to create a superior comic experience and not an inferior animation. At the end of the day, in our company, we wanted to make sure that whatever we're doing has to be called a comic at the end of the day. People have to agree it is still a comic. The challenge lies in balancing what exactly is a comic and what exactly is animation and where to draw the line. That is something that the audience and storytellers like us have to come to agreement and consensus on. And ultimately, we can have all the fancy stuff, I think. But at the end of the day, as a storyteller and as a consumer of entertainment, you realize the key thing is that story is still king. And if you have a very poor storyline, it doesn't matter what effects you have. People won't buy your product. So with that, thank you very much for having me, and I hope you enjoyed the talk. Thank you.